Okay, so our conversation tonight is going to be based on the changes that we're going to see with the buyer representation agreement and the exclusive right to sell listing agreement. Those two documents, along with how the short form on the buyer representation agreement side is changing and what it's alluding to, along with those changes in the IABS. So this is going to be kind of a representations contract kind of conversation, but it's also going to talk about agency, how we establish agency, disclosures that we should be having at the beginning, and how all these changes kind of engulf that and talk about the compensation as well. Okay. All right. So, first off, we're going to start with sharing my screen. There we go. So when you have your customers and your clients, right? Because this conversation is no longer just for clients anymore. This agency conversation is now for customers and clients because there is a such thing as showing houses to people who are not your clients anymore. As long as they sign the information about brokerage services and the non-representation agreement, they can see whatever house they want to with you. And if they sign the short form and they pay you for those showing services, these customers can see whatever they want to with you. So here's how this is supposed to work. The biggest thing on the information about brokerage services, which is also something new, they've taken away sub agency, as we know, but they've also added this little note down here where it talks about, let me zoom in so you can really see it, where it talks about that the broker does not perform any other act of real estate brokerage for the buyer tenant before showing a residential property to an unrepresented prospective buyer. A license holder must enter into a written agreement that contains the information required by the section 1101-563 of the Texas Occupation Code. And that agreement may not be exclusive and must be limited to no more than 14 days. What are they talking about? So prior to June of 2024, if you wanted to see a property, I did not have to have a buyer's representation agreement. I could have just had maybe a verbal agreement that just said, I'm your realtor and hey, let me go show you 123 Easy Street. After this lawsuit went down, part of the biggest part of the lawsuit was compensation. The other side of the lawsuit was agency. And how do you establish that? So instead of having people who were unrepresented walking into properties with realtors that they just met on Zillow or realtors that are friends of the family, but they don't have a written agreement in, they decided, you know what? We need to establish that a written agreement, period, must be in effect to get brokerage services. Doesn't necessarily mean that written agreement means I am your realtor and you are my client. It could also just simply mean I have a written agreement to show you a property. I have a written agreement for you to walk into my open house now and things like that. This specific little dot on the IABS, which is new, is basically saying you have to sign something to get anything from a realtor. Okay. So now that we have that in place, here are your options. If you have, and I'm going through the options with the changes all at the same time on this representation. Okay. So we have two buyer tenant rep agreements. So if you have a tenant looking to lease something, or if you have a buyer looking to buy something, we have two agreement options. We have the short form, hence in case the point, the document is literally 2 pages. And we also have the long form, hence the point, this document is 6 pages. Okay, one is short and one is long. Both of them do the same thing, kind of. The short form is clearly giving you the Cliff Notes version of what it means to represent a buyer as a buyer's agent, whether that means you're a broker or a sales agent. Okay, so what you see in blue are all of the things that we are changing. Okay. So what they've changed here at the top, this whole section here is really just changing things from capital to non-capital letters, adding in a few words here or there, but not necessarily really changing the motion of the document. This is where things start to change as far as what people have to do. Okay. So this goes into that IABS that we just talked about. Client obligations, meaning this is what the client is obligated to do. Okay. So the client must A, work exclusively through broker in acquiring property in the market area. That is huge. So what we have sometimes is when buyers or clients will hire you as an agent, but also have another agent doing another search and another agent doing another search. And at the end of it, you're just like, well, do I get paid or not? This document is saying you are going to exclusively work with me. You're not going to work with anybody else. You're going to work through this broker. Okay. All right. The second thing they're guaranteeing, these are client obligations, is that they must inform other brokers, sales agents, sellers, and landlords that the broker exclusively represents that client and refer all such persons to the broker. Attendance at open houses or property showings where no advice, opinions, negotiations, substantive brokerage services are provided does not violate these obligations. What does that mean? It is the worst thing ever when I am not available and my clients just up and decide, I'm going to go to this open house that I found on Zillow. You are totally willing to do that. Go for it. It's just, I'm not going with you. So how do I support them? How do I answer any questions for them? I can't, right? So this client obligation is saying when you go to the open house, when you go there, you have to let the broker or agent that's there know that you are represented by somebody. That is like an agent biggest fear is that they don't let the other person know. And then that open house client, that open house agent just swoops in, woos you off your feet, and now you sign a different buy rep agreement, and then I get fired because I was busy with my family or something. So this document is saying you have to let the other one know. Now, do you see this part where it says that there's no advice, no opinions, no negotiations, even if there's substantive broker services provided, does not violate the obligation, okay? That wording is very similar to this document over here. This is not a new document as far as the newest changes that we are seeing. This is just new for the moment. So this is called the unrepresented customer showing form. And the language is very similar. There's no advice or opinions. There is no other brokerage services, no compensation. There's no representation. I simply need you to go open the door for me and show me the property. What this document does is it takes liability off the brokerage that's showing you the property and the brokerage that's allowing you to show the property. And it gives you an open window of 14 calendar days. Okay. You cannot get paid to show these houses when you use this form. But this document is for the people who maybe they met you on TikTok. Maybe they met you via Zillow or Realtor or a lead that even I send you. And they are trying to get to know you. They only see your profile picture. They don't know who you are. They're not quite comfortable enough to make an agreement and actually be your client, but they do want to see this house and they want to meet you at the same time. This is a great document to use. I will show you this one property or these two properties. In the meantime, I'm going to sweep you off your feet. And by the end of those two showings, you are going to sign the buyer representation agreement. But in the meantime, we can sign this. The other reason why you would use this is for open houses. If you were doing an open house for another brokerage, not our brokerage, any other brokerage, like the one that pays money for you to do open houses. I put it in the chat this morning. If you do an open house for them, we do not represent the seller, nor do we represent any of the buyers that walk in. They need to sign this document that says, nobody represents me. I'm simply just here to see this open house. And again, hopefully by the time the open house is over, I can get you now to sign the buyer representation agreement. Okay. So the difference between this form and this form, okay, because we have a situation where you can do showing services, but again, here you're gonna see where they're taking that out. Let me show you. There we go. Okay, so when you are doing, oh wait, no, 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 they took it out completely. Yeah, they took it out. So what we did have here was showing services. So that was, oh no, 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 I'm sorry. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Right here. So on this document over here, you cannot get paid, right? Because you see it right here. It says no compensation. This is again one of those situations where I am going to show you the property or it's an open house, but I'm not going to be compensated to do that. I'm trying to woo you right now. Okay. But over here, on this particular document, this is not that type of situation. This is a buyer tenant representation agreement between a client and the brokerage. And we are saying right here in yellow, I'm going to show you said amount of houses, but I'm going to charge you to show you those houses. You have no intentions of actually having me as your agent. I have no intentions of actually representing you, but you are using me to open these doors, no problem. You're going to have to pay me per door. Okay, so I want $10 per door, $25 per door, $100 for the day, whatever that is. You put that amount right here, you sign, they sign, and there you go. And then on the flip side, the compensation agreement that every single one of you have signed specifically states when you use your showing services, those people can Zelle you, Cash App you, PayPal you, Venmo you directly. Right here in this yellow, it says client will pay broker. They are not sending me your showing services fee. I do not want that. They need to send that directly to you. Okay. So simply to just do some brokerage services, we are now following suit from this yellow here that there must be right here. The license holder must enter into a written agreement for what? Any brokerage services. Opening doors is a brokerage service. Okay. But there are two different ways you could do it. You can get paid to do it here, or you cannot get paid to do it here. Or again, this could be for open houses. I'm going to pause for the cause. I'm not saying you can go out and just conquer the world today, but did it at least make sense? What I said, did it make sense? Is everybody okay?
Yes.
Yes, makes sense.
Yes. Okay. I just want to make sure it makes sense. We are all on the same page here. Okay, so now here are some of the changes that we brought up here on the compensation side or on the source of payment. This is big. You're going to see, we're also going to talk more about this when we look at the long form. But I want you to check this out. So it says source of payment. What we know is that from our previous conversations, when the buyer is expecting to receive payment, the source of their payment will come from the seller, landlord, or the listing broker. Okay. And or the listing broker. But remember in our previous conversations with all these changes, there is no more listing broker fee, right? The listing broker is not taking a fee that will pay both agents anymore. The listing broker is now just taking fees for them. The buyer broker is going to have to negotiate their own fee directly from the seller. Listing brokers are no longer writing checks. It's not happening anymore. So what this is saying now. You see how it marked out broker? The client may seek to obtain payment of the broker's fees specified in paragraph 7A from the seller or landlord. Do you see how their agents is marked out? The broker will assist the client in negotiating any contribution from that seller or landlord. However, the client remains responsible for the payment of the compensation due to the broker under this agreement, less any amounts contributed. Okay. So, like it's supposed to be, do not tell people as the buyer agent, as the tenant agent, I work for free. You don't have to pay me a fee. The landlord will always pay. The listing broker always pays. The seller always pays. 98% of the time, that is the truth. But now, with how these documents have been changed wording wise, people read documents before they sign them, believe it or not. And these sellers are going to start reading their listing agreements and they're going to say, wait a minute, I don't have to pay for both sides anymore. It's going to change the game because people have been, this is why the lawsuit has gone crazy. People have been saying, oh, I work for free. You don't have to pay me on the buying side. The listing side pays me 24/7. You don't have to worry about it. I'm going to show you all these houses and you don't even have to pay my referral fee when I take you to that apartment complex. You don't say that because that is not true. Before you take them somewhere and you make them a client, you're making them sign this agreement, the buyer representation long form, or they're signing the short form. What does this form say? It specifically says, as the client, all of this right here. Let me get a marker thingy. All of this right here. Mm-mm-mm. All of this. All of this literally is saying more or less, oop, this too, more or less, buyer, I am going to be paid this amount. Tenant, I am going to be paid this amount. You are obligated to pay me. The client is obligated to pay you. I am not showing you houses for free. I am not writing contracts for free. I am not negotiating your leases for free. I'm not talking to apartment complexes for free. I do this full time. I have bills to pay. Somebody has to pay me. On paper, you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, will pay me. It says it clearly right here. You remain responsible for payment. The source of my compensation is from the client. Okay, it's from the client. Now, the beautiful part about this, where you get to come in and make people understand that they don't have to freak out because life has not changed. It's been this way since real estate has been real estate because agents were not explaining this correctly. Now we have to change the wording, but there has never been a contract that says that the sellers will pay buyer agents. It's never been that way. It's always been the way that you see it right here. It's just that the wording is now changed to make it crystal clear that this is how it's always been. I'm answering your question, Tasha. This is how it's always been. We are just changing the wording here. So again, stop telling people, I know none of y'all are because I train you all well, way too well, but do not ever make the mistake of telling a buyer, a tenant, an apartment person, I work for free. No, you don't. And the contract that they now will have to sign in June literally says in yellow, the source of compensation, client remains responsible for payment. Who's the client? The one signing this document. Okay. Now, let's fix how you're supposed to have this conversation. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, this is my fee. When you buy a property, this, whatever you put here in this box, this is my fee. When you lease a property, this is my fee. This is my fee. You are responsible for that fee. But as the representative of you, myself and my broker will assist you right here. This is the pretty part. This is how you get to explain this without people freaking out. We will assist you in negotiating the contribution of my fee from the seller or the landlord. That is my job. That's why you hired me, to help you negotiate that property, to help you negotiate the lease or the apartment, is because you think I'm good at my job. Well, I come with a fee and I'm going to help you. On your behalf, I'm going to negotiate with that seller or landlord to pay the fee that is listed right up here. Okay. Where do I have this negotiation conversation? Let's come back to the conversation from the last training, right here in the contract. This is your 1 to 4 family contract. This is what it's about to say come June. It says right here that the brokerage compensation, these are the two people that can contribute to that brokerage conversation in the contract. Remember, no more compensation between brokers because we're discussing it here. Okay. So yes, I am going to charge you this amount when you purchase that property, and I'm going to assist you in negotiating my contribution from that seller or landlord right here in the contract. I want the seller to pay this amount or this amount towards the brokerage compensation owed by the buyer to the buyer's broker. So it's the same. It's not, and nothing's changed. Nothing has changed, just how it's worded has changed to make sure everybody is clear. All realtor compensations are negotiable. Read the next line. The buyer can now add money towards the listing agent's compensation. Wow. Anybody can pay anybody. As long as both agents get paid, I think everybody's going to be fine. We don't care where the money's really coming from, right? As long as everybody gets paid, we're good. So just remember, on the buying side, we do not tell people that we work for free, okay? And it says it here on your IABS. Before I can do anything from you, I have to have a written agreement. One of those written agreements is going to talk about how much money I get paid to do whatever brokerage service you ask for. Okay. It's just the wording. Very good. Yes, Tarsha, it's just the wording. So that is going to be your biggest change for the buyer representation agreement is that it's specifically telling you, one, the client obligations with this open house stuff, which is again the biggest scare for any agent, is sending people to an open house without representation, and also making sure that we are spelling this out very clearly. Yes, I am going to represent you on the buyer side. Yes, this is my fee, but I'm going to assist you by negotiating my fee from that seller or landlord right here in the contract. Simple as pie. Now, down here, nothing has changed here. If there's any bonuses or additional compensation, look, there's no blue, there's no red. This is all the same. Okay. If you have additional compensation, especially for my newer people, what this is talking about, let's say you have Jane Doe is moving from 123 Easy Street to 456 Easy Street. And they ask you, do you have a referral to a moving company? And that moving company says, anybody you send me, I will give you $250. You need to disclose that you are going to make additional compensation in the middle of this deal. You can also get that same type of referral thing going with like an ADT or a Safe Haven. All the security companies, they call me every single time I close a deal, and they offer $200 if we refer them to their security company and your client gets free installs or whatever, if you want to do that. Same thing with like home warranties. You could get a kickback for that as long as it's disclosed. You can even do it with utilities. There's electric companies that will give you money for sending people. All of that stuff is additional compensation and it needs to be listed. It is required for it to be listed. This contract literally says you will not make a penny more than what's labeled in this contract due to their services, the services you're offering that client. If you're getting a bonus, you are adding the bonus into the amendment. If a new construction company is giving you extra money than you did it that you did not put in the contract, you're listing that on the amendment. Every dollar has to be accounted for, and you simply are just being transparent. So it's a real relationship, okay? This is the buyer side. So we talked about agency, non-representation, and representation. We talked about the changes in compensation here. Is everybody still okay? We got one more document I'm going to breeze through. Okay. All right. Your listing agreement. Okay. So now we're talking about the selling side. This is the listing side. Look at all this red. We just take it all out. Because remember, there is no compensation for the other broker. Look at that. With compensation for other broker, it's gone. There is no more compensation for the other broker. It is simply now just compensation for me on the listing side. So this says broker's fee when earned and payable, seller will pay the broker. Select all that apply, insert the amount. Okay, so on the listing side, I am going to be paid this amount for that listing and an additional amount. This is new. If the buyer is unrepresented. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Now, can you do an intermediary still? Absolutely, you can. And can you still make your typical fee, whatever you like to charge on both sides? You sure can. But I've been in situations where I represent the seller and that buyer comes along and they just do not want representation. They think that money comes off the price or it gives a better negotiation tactic, whatever, whatever. But if you were unrepresented, who is doing your paperwork? Me. I'm still doing it. So you might as well just let me represent you. But if you don't want to, No problem. I'm still going to get paid though. Do you see that? Like there's a box for that. So you're telling your sellers up front, this is how much I'm going to charge you to list your house. If someone comes to me unrepresented, this is how much I'm going to charge you extra to do their paperwork. Period. If you leave this blank, that is up to you. What you charge in these two boxes is none of my business. I mean, I see it obviously because I have to sign your checks, but your fee is your fee. I just want the $500 from the transaction fee. So as long as you're going to make money plus that 500, I'm happy with you and you're happy with me. You charge whatever you want to here. And this is compensation without the other broker. So I do not have to worry when I see a listing go up on our site from one of you guys that says 123 Easy Street. I don't have to worry that our brokerage is paying another brokerage. It's not an option anymore. So, same spot in this contract, when your clients are telling you, well, this is just dandy. I only have to pay you your percentage, Jasmine. I don't have to pay you anything else. That is true until the offer comes in. And now the offer is here, and here comes that buyer agent that's going to say, seller will pay this amount towards brokerage compensation for the buyer. So now you are paying me and you're still paying them. It's just not coming out of my broker's box. It's coming out of theirs. Does that make sense? It's just different on the final disclosure at the title company. That's it. But that is how that conversation goes. So there's sellers out there who are like, great, I only have to pay you, Jasmine. I only have to pay you, Tarsha, you, Eddie, you, Cicely. I don't have to pay the other side. For right now, that is the case, yes, because there's no offer on the table and we are simply just here talking about the listing agreement. At this exact moment, you are only confirming you're going to pay me my fee. That's it. But when that offer comes in, please understand this will be filled out. They're going to put a dollar amount here. And just like the price up here in paragraph 3, just like the price that they're going to negotiate, they're probably going to come in under asking, or just like paragraph 12, where they're going to start asking you to pay their closing costs right here. You get to negotiate how much you're going to pay here as well. But it is going to be filled out. No buyer's agent is going to leave that blank. Okay, so just make sure you have that upfront conversation with your sellers because you do not want them to read this and be delusional and think, oh, I'm not going to pay that buyer's agent. I doubt it. I highly doubt it. You're going to pay them. More than likely, the only time you don't see sellers actually pay buyer agents is when there isn't a buyer agent because the buyer is an investor and they don't need representation. But even then, go back to your listing agreement. When that happens, now you're paying me a little bit extra over here. So you're still going to pay for something. Just for right this second, the only thing you're telling a seller that they have to worry about paying is this fee right here because they have to pay you and they have to agree to pay you first. We don't need to discuss how much the other people are making until we see an offer. Okay, so that's how all of this stuff is blending together with all these changes. We have our IABS that says we have to have a written agreement. We have our short form that says I can show you houses for money. We have the non-representation document that says I can show you houses or do open houses, but that person that walks in to see that house is not paying me any money. But in our situation, the brokerage can pay you, but not the actual person viewing the home. So you got one document that says I'm going to pay you, another one that says I'm not going to pay you. Okay. You also have in your short form, the beautiful part right here. Everybody's going to like, I'm telling you, this is a game changer. This box and this box up here that specifically says that when there's an open house, if someone is represented, they are required, that client is required to disclose who represents them, how long that contract is going, whatever, so that the person hosting the open house does not think that they can waste their time. If they're represented, they must disclose that now, come June. And then on your listing agreement, the biggest change is that we are taking away compensation to the other broker. Okay. If you want more detailed conversations on compensation, that is a totally different video. But this, I just wanted to show specifically how they were changing that compensation and the wording in our buyer and seller agreements. These documents will all go live in June. I want to say like June 1st, so like next week. Okay, so now what does that mean for your current clients? If any of you have any current clients, all of these changes that we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks, they're not in effect yet. So your current clients or anyone that you meet before these documents actually go live, you are using the old documents that have all of the boxes that have been marked out. You're using those old documents. My suggestion to you is to still use the boxes that will be boxes in June. So don't sign a listing agreement and agree to pay the other broker. Just stop doing it now and go ahead and focus on paying yourself. And let that buyer broker practice negotiating for themselves, things like that. Open houses, a lot of you do open houses, making sure you have a copy of that unrepresented customer showing form with your IABS. That is a must at all of your open houses. You need them both. Okay. So those were the biggest changes that we needed to discuss here. And that actually sums up all of the changes, like all of them. I think we've done like 4 or 5 trainings at this point about all this stuff, and every single training has been about something new. So that is it as far as individual things that we can pull from each of these contracts.